Hello, it's me again. I was gonna do some FGC type stuff, but YouTube's being really weird today, so it can't access my older videos, which is really strange. So now I'm just gonna literally talk about anything. It's Monday, nobody watches videos on a Monday anyway. So, but if you are watching, prove it to me by suggesting a good real life documentary. I like crime documentaries. It doesn't always have to be crime, like something with good twists and turns and that type of thing. I love that stuff. I love it. I'm currently watching this Robert Durst documentary, which surprisingly I don't think I've seen before, but it's supposed to be one of the best out there at the moment. Anyway, what should we talk about today? We could talk about leaving America. That was quite interesting. So at the end of COVID, I was still in New York, and I had obviously I'd had my career in advertising, which was interesting. I'd had my passion, which was Street Fighter and YouTube and fighting games and all that stuff, which was immensely wonderful. And then I had lost all love for that. It just sort of dissipated and disappeared. And I can talk about that in a different video probably, but it's hard to talk about something which is pure passion. It's a little bit like falling out of love with someone. It's sometimes you can't really pinpoint it, COVID came along, and COVID in New York was interesting. Actually, that would make a good video. COVID in New York versus COVID in England. For my English viewers, I would say this: looking at COVID in England versus what it was like in New York, it felt very much like in the UK it was a lot stricter. The government was sort of telling everybody what to do, whereas in America there was this feeling of freedom. It's always comes back to freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of you're not going to tell me what to do type of thing. So New York, whilst it didn't have anything like curfews, it didn't have anything like police bothering you if you were wandering outdoors, it had plenty of people who were not interested in following any of the rules, and there was a lot of fighting and stuff, I suppose, whether it be online or actually in person. The right versus the left, and the country felt very divided, and I honestly at that time felt like we were on the edge of civil war at some points. It just felt really intense. And actually that movie came out, Civil War, which is a pretty good movie. Actually, it's worth watching. So anyway, I was stuck doing the hermit thing, and that was fine by me because as I've said before, and I will do a video on my hermit life, but I have a tendency just to, I don't have somebody else in my life making me want to go out and do things. I can simply stay indoors and use the computer and the phone as proxies for a life. But it's not good for you. It's like pretty miserable not getting sunlight. It's pretty miserable not having exercise. It's pretty miserable not having intimacy or contact or connection with other people. But yeah, so I made a decision towards the end of 2020, middle of 2021. It had been about a year and a half since COVID had started, and it was dragging on, and we didn't know what was going to happen. There was definitely moments where I wasn't sure whether I was going to get stuck in America for a very long time. Like there were points where, for sure, if you remember this, where you really didn't know what was going to happen next. And, borders were sometimes closed and travel was difficult and all that stuff. And at some point they brought the vaccines in, and it was like, well, if you take this vaccine, you can travel. And, I actually didn't want to take the vaccine. This has nothing to do with politics, by the way, please. This had nothing to do with politics. I've never sat on the right. I've never sat on the left. I've never been a fan of the two-party system. I think it gives an illusion of choice, but it's not. It's not. You have issues, various different differing issues, and you can decide what you like or dislike. And in some ways, voting can be like the lesser of two evils for me. But you know, I don't love talking politics, to be perfectly honest with you. Never have done, and probably never will. But at that time, I wasn't. You know, I did my research, what I could do on vaccines, and it wasn't wholly convincing. It wasn't feeling wholly convincing that the vaccine was a good idea. You know, and in fact, when I had my vaccine, I was nervous. I was pretty nervous when I actually had it done. Really nervous for well, you know, it was what it was. There was also that idea of having mild symptoms in the first day or night or whatever. But the vaccine itself at the time was fine. Who knows what the long-term effects are? I don't know. Again, I'm not looking for lots of politically charged perspectives in my chat. But yeah, I had some nervousness around that. Anyway, I got it so that I could travel. I decided that I didn't know why I was in New York anymore, other than like the weather is much better in America, and that's good for me because I'm not good with darkness and it being dreary and cold and all that stuff. And I just wasn't sure. You know, this is where I started to lose my way, really, in terms of direction. But I knew that I wanted to be near friends. I knew that I wanted to be near family, people that I'd grown up with, family, of course. Wanted to see what was going on with my dad, because I was seeing him from afar, and I wasn't sure that he was doing so well. And of course, you know, everyone's getting older, you know. I want to see people like my brother and my nephews and all that stuff. So, my mother and stepfather and all, you know, like the list goes on, and friends and how are they doing, and you know, I think really what was hard was, and I wasn't expecting this, was in order to move back, what I had to do, because I couldn't afford to take all my stuff back, and there was no reason to take all my stuff back, because I was just going to come back, I was going to grab a room in my dad's house, and then I guess I was going to figure it out from there. But I was just bringing 2 suitcases back, and I have to say, I was not expecting the emotional toll that it took on me. So it was like I had this 1-bedroom apartment, right? Fair enough, I was renting it, I didn't own it, but it felt like, you know, like I'd felt for a long time. Like I was an adult, I had my own place. You know, if people needed to crash there, they could. If I wanted to take girls back there, I could. If I had a girlfriend at the time, we'd have a place. It was, you know, there's lots of wonderful things attached to that. And then, of course, you've got your furniture that you've built up over the years, maybe collectibles, maybe technology, whatever, right? Yeah, almost like I had like a streaming area, which was kind of like almost like a man cave type thing. So like all these things I collected, and then suddenly it was like a race to get them sold or get them broken down into bits and pieces and put on the sidewalk for them to be collected, because that's how it works in New York. So I was working with my super in the building, who was quite helpful, very helpful in terms of doing that, and then also put a small amount of stuff into storage, but not much. And that was a strange experience. I was pretty sad through that experience, and then gradually towards the end I got to my last 2 bags, filled them full of stuff. I remember making a choice out of 2 coats that I had for the winter, and I nearly made the worst choice of my life, but I called my brother, and he was like, no, you want to get that one, you want to keep that one, which turned out to be a good idea, because it was, first of all, it was worth a hell of a lot more money, and secondly, it was just a better quality coat overall. But that was me trying to fit stuff into these 2 bags, basically. But the craziest thing happened to me. I've only ever had 2 panic attacks in my life, and the second one happened to me the night before I left, and that was my super and his wife came down to say goodbye to the cat. The cat I left there, Goki the cat, if anyone remembers Goki. Such a beautiful, wonderful cat. Unfortunately, he's passed away now. And while they were there looking at, sort of stroking the cat or whatever, playing with the cat, I just had this panic attack, which happens in my head and it's hard to describe, but essentially where nothing really makes sense. People, they start talking and their words don't make sense. And it was coming in waves, and I just basically said to them, this is what's happening to me. Can you go? Can you now go, please? Can you now go, please? See, now, can you please now go? But that's exactly kind of what it was like. And that took me by surprise. I was like, wow, there's something about leaving this country, leaving New York. There's something deeper going on here that I don't really understand, but it's happening. And so, yeah, then there was loads of paperwork and stuff like that for flying out. But somehow I made it and I got back here, and then everything was just really quiet because I'm in the middle of the country and I've never experienced anything like this. See? It's different. It's really different. Anyway, that's my video for today, because the one that I had planned, I wasn't able to make. So I hope you enjoyed my ramblings, and I'll see you in the next one.